Hey, welcome back to Dan's Chess Lounge, everyone. So today we have the finals of the FIDE World Cup, and we have Jan-Krzysztof Duda, the young Polish GM, going up against Sergey Karjakin, who's otherwise known as the Minister of Defense. So Sergey, he's no stranger to elite chess and top-level chess. He won the Candidates Tournament back in 2015, and then he faced Magnus Carlsen the next year, and he played very well in that World Championship match. So he is known to be a very elite level player. So it's going to be a tough task for the young Polish GM Jan-Krzysztof Duda to be able to take him out. So we'll see what transpired over the board. Let's go ahead and get into it. Duda was white, Sergey was black, and the game started off with d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Looks like we could be going into a Nimzo Indian if white plays knight c3, but instead he plays knight f3. Now, a lot of times knight f3 here is played to avoid the knight here going to c3, and then you can avoid the Nimzo Indian. I mean, there's other things that you have to face, like the Bogo Indian, but it's not as, you don't have to face the same problems. Let's just say it like that. So you have d5 here, so we're transposing into a Queen's Gambit declined. Knight c3, and c5 starts the Semi-Tarrasch variation of the Queen's Gambit defense. C takes d, C takes D, and so you have some liquidation going on here in the center of the board. And queen captures. Duda brings out his queen pretty early on in the game here. I thought he might have captured with the knight instead, so his queen wouldn't get chased around later, and black would actually gain some tempo with some developing moves, like maybe like once the pawns here gets traded off. And then black could play knight c6, and that would also hit the queen there. But queen captures on d4 is a move too. E takes d. And as far as the opening goes so far, you can see that black has the isolated queen's pawn there on d5. And that can either be a pro or a con. And, it can either be something that's going to riddle down his position and be a burden to him for the whole game, or it could allow him to have these open lines like the open C file here and the open E file here, so he can get his bishops out and basically have easier development. Bishop G5, Bishop E7, E3, castles, Rook D1, Knight C6. That's that knight move there, hitting the queen with the tempo. Queen sidesteps to A4. So far, it's a pretty standard Semi-Tarrasch opening. Each side is developing their pieces, and like I said before, the play is going to revolve around, the isolated queen's pawn. Bishop E6, Bishop B5, Queen B6. Now, black is fully developed here, and his rooks are connected. White just needs to go ahead and castle or do something with his king, get his king out the middle of the board, or else that's going to become a problem for white if he doesn't. You have bishop captures f6 here. Now, it looks like this pawn here is going to be able to be captured. Bishop captures and knight captures that pawn. Bishop captures, rook captures, but here the actual B2 pawn is being is available to be captured as well. And Sergey goes ahead and he does that. Now you have King E2, which is an interesting move and an interesting decision that Duda decides to play. I would have thought he would have castled here, but instead he plays King E2, which is a little rare that he would decide to do that, considering you have both queens still on the board here. And usually, if a player decides to bring his king out, It's usually when the queens are off the board and you're in an end game. But since there's still a lot of firepower on the board, I'm really curious to see how Duda is going to play this. So he plays bishop f6. Sergey played bishop f6. Duda played rook hd1, rook ac8, bishop c4. Okay. So now Sergey offers a queen trade here. Duda declines that trade and says, well, if you want to exchange queens, then we're going to have to do it the way I want to do it. So he decides to play queen b3. Now queen captures, bishop captures. The knight goes back to reroute to a different position. A little maneuvering going on there. And Duda starts his attack. He plays g4. And this is a good example of, even though the queens come off the board, it doesn't mean that the game is going to be, not exciting or there's not going to be any fireworks. He launches it out with pawn g4, h6, h4. So you have a pawn storm coming here. g6, g5 hits the bishop. And now the bishop retreats to bishop e7. Rook e5 hits the bishop. And I have to say that Jan-Krzysztof is doing a great job of trying to create something out of nothing, really. He's definitely the one that's pushing the initiative, and he's trying to make something happen here. Knight c6. And now you have a really cool move here. Rook d7. Even though his rook on e5 is hanging and being attacked, he said, okay, I'll go ahead and drop the exchange to get my rook on the 7th rank. As we know, the 7th rank is called the collecting rank, because that's where you can collect a lot of your opponent's pieces. So he's looking at the bishop here, lining up against the f7 pawn. He's looking at the rook capturing on b7. He's looking at the rook and bishop teaming up on that f7 pawn. So this is a very, very good move here. So now, let's see what would happen if he goes ahead and captures, right, on e5. So knight captures rook here. Knight captures back. And now you have bishop going to g5, right, to get out of the way from being attacked by the rook. But what that does is now you have the bishop, the knight, and the rook all teaming up against the f7 square. And you even have an attack on the g6 square because it's pinned. If he would play knight captures g6, he wouldn't be able to capture it back because he's pinned because of the bishop here on b3. So that would be, monstrous. Let's say knight captures on f7, rook captures, and now you have this pin here. He would have to get out the way of the pin, king h8, and then he captures on b7. This would be a winning endgame here for white. And I guarantee you that Sergey saw all of this because it's not that difficult to see. So he saw this and he said he didn't want to go down that route. So if we go back, instead he didn't play knight captures the rook. He played bishop d8 instead because he saw all of that, right? So Duda plays rook b5. Now he's got two rooks hitting the b7 pawn. Knight a5, that protects the pawn. And now you have bishop d5. Now you have three pieces, three attackers, all on that b7 pawn. And now they're also teaming up on the f7 square as well. Rook c7. And now we've come to a critical moment in the game. If you would like to pause the video and try to figure out what was the best move here in this position, what do you think Jan-Krzysztof Duda played here? As you can see, the bishop is no longer protecting the knight here on a5 because the rook is in the way. It's interfering now. So what do you think the best move in this position is? Go ahead and pause the video. And for those who just want to see what the move is and the continuation of the game, the best move in this position here is actually bishop captures on f7. Check. Yes. And there's a couple different options or moves that black can play. So if black plays the obvious rook captures bishop, then you have rook captures bishop on d8 check. King gets out of the way. And then white picks off the knight on a5. And this is just clearly winning. He's up a whole piece. So that's not the best move there, or best continuation. So instead of capturing the bishop there on f7, Karjakin decided to play king g7, just sidestep the check. But now that's kind of dangerous because he's in the way of the rook there for a discovery. And so he plays rook captures c7, bishop captures, and now you have bishop d5. You have both pieces there hitting the b7 square and pawn. And this is just a really bad position for black here. There's not a lot for black to try to improve on. So Karjakin decided to throw in the towel right here, and he resigned. There's no forcing mate on the board or anything like that, but his position is just bad. He is down a pawn, but there's not really anything that he can do. The b7 pawn is under attack, so he's under the threat of losing another pawn, and it would just be a slow death. For example, play might have continued something like, let's see, the pawn's under attack, so he would play b6. Now you would have the awesome move knight d4. Now knight d4 is threatening, the fork on the king, rook, and bishop there, picking up more material. So it's just an all-in-all terrible position for black to play. So I can see why he threw in the towel there. So with that victory in this game, Jan-Krzysztof Duda won the 2021 FIDE World Cup. And so congratulations to him. He'll get $88,000 roughly for winning first place. But more importantly is he gets an automatic entry into next year's candidates tournament. And Sergey Karjakin, for being in second place, he'll also get an entry into the candidates tournament as well. So that's not a bad consolation prize for Sergey Karjakin. I'm interested in seeing how Duda is going to continue to progress and improve. He's kind of been playing on the big stage now for a couple years, but he's never been able to step it up like now. His game has never been as good as it's been right now. He knocked off a lot of good opponents in this World Cup, so I'm very, very impressed by Duda's play. So hats off to him. Hey, I hope you all enjoyed the videos, not just this one, but the whole series that I did on the FIDE World Cup. If you didn't see any of the videos, go back and check them out. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.